So welcome to Lesson 9.1. This is a Security and Risk Management Domain Review and Study Roadmap. The ISC² Security and Risk Management Domain is covered in Lessons 1.1 to 1.6. There are four primary categories in this domain, and the categories are fundamental concepts and governance, legal systems, laws, regulations, and contractual obligations, personnel and third-party security, and risk management. And this course is organized so that you can study each one of those categories. But within each lesson, I'm also going to let you know what the map back is into the key area of knowledge in your candidate information bulletin. So we're going to go through each one of these categories. I'm going to share with you the topic areas that we study in each, and that will help you either determine your study roadmap, or if you've already gone through the whole course, what areas you may want to go back to and restudy. So the first four lessons, 1.1 through 1.4, focuses on fundamental concepts and governance. This is really the basis of the rest of the course. Here's where we define information security and cybersecurity, and we look at the fundamental concepts of integrity, confidentiality, and availability. Lesson 1.2 topics include leadership and governance, the legal constructs of due care and due diligence, the absolute importance of strategic alignment and having security support business objectives. We study the 8 generally accepted security principles that are in NIST 8-14, and we look at NIST resources. Lesson 1.3 topics include the ecosystem of security roles and responsibilities, executive management, board of directors, information security personnel, organizational roles such as privacy officers, compliance officers, physical security officers, and functional roles such as owners, custodians, and users. And our last topic in this area is working with policies and then supporting documents such as standards, baselines, guidelines, procedures, plans, and programs. These four topic areas make up the fundamental concepts and governance category. The second category is legal systems, law, regulations, and contractual obligations. Here again, we have four lessons, 1.5 through 1.8. 1.5, we're studying common law and customary law, and then common law components of criminal law, tort law, administrative or regulatory law, as well as hybrid law when we have a convergence of more than one law system. In Lesson 1.6, we define intellectual property and look at intellectual property laws, including trademarks and copyrights, patents and trade secrets, as well as software licensing and piracy. We also look at computer crime and 4 federal statutes that deal with computer crime, and then we address the topic of cybercrime. Lesson 1.7 topics include privacy, and we define privacy in relationship to security. We look at global approaches to privacy, and we study international privacy laws, including European Union, Mexican, and Canadian. And lastly, in Lesson 1.7, we focus on the importance of understanding the implications of trans-border data flow. It means when our data either is transmitted between countries or resides in multiple countries. Lesson 1.8, here's where we study sector-specific privacy regulations, including GLBA, that impacts the financial sector, HIPAA in the healthcare sector, FISMA for federal government agencies, and FERPA for colleges and universities. We also look at 2 groundbreaking state laws, the California First in the Nation Consumer Security Breach Law and the Massachusetts First in the Nation Data Protection Law. We study presidential decision directives, known as PDDs, that impact federal agencies and very often give us a clue about upcoming legislation. And then we lastly focus on contractual obligations, specifically PCI DSS, that's the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, as well as downstream liability. So those are our 4 topic areas in the legal system, law, regulations, and contractual obligations category. The third category is personnel and third-party security. We have 2 lessons here, 1.9 and 1.10, and they in many ways mirror each other. It's just that our audiences are different, personnel versus third parties. In personnel, we look at the entire employee life cycle with an emphasis on recruitment and screening. We study user provisioning, privacy expectations, and the importance of letting personnel know about privacy policies, agreements, including confidentiality agreements and acceptable use policy agreements, training and awareness programs, the SETA model, which is Security, Education, Training, and Awareness, that's a NIST 800-16, and some NIST resources. Lesson 1.10 topics, which are focusing on third parties, include third-party due diligence, third-party oversight, contracts, including what provisions should be in the contracts, agreements, such as a non-disclosure agreement, compliance requirements for our third party, remembering that we can outsource the work, but we can't outsource the regulatory requirements or the contractual obligation, incident notification protocols, service level agreement components, and then the importance of educating our third party on our security expectations. And then the fourth category is risk management. This is a really large category, and this is also a category that I would anticipate is going to be emphasized on the exam. So we start in lesson 1.11 with threat modeling, including asset-centric, attacker-centric, and architecture-centric. We look at threat intelligence and vulnerability identification, and then we stress the importance of information sharing. In 1.12, here's where we start studying risk. We define risk tolerance for an organization, we explore a number of different risk frameworks, as well as the components of a risk management program, and then the risk response options of risk acceptance or risk mitigation. In lesson 1.13, we review our risk assessment terminology. We look at various risk assessment approaches, including quantitative, qualitative, and hybrid, and then explore a number of different risk assessment methodologies. Lesson 1.14 is all about a quantitative risk assessment. We study asset value, exposure factor, single loss expectancy, annualized rate of occurrence, annualized loss expectancy, and cost-benefit ratios. And we walk through that whole thing and we do the calculations. In 1.15, we do a qualitative risk assessment. So in 1.14, we did a quantitative. In 1.15, we do a qualitative. We look at qualitative risk assessment methodologies, and we do a complete qualitative risk assessment walkthrough. And again, we look at available NIST resources. In 1.16 is where we start to talk about controls, layered security, and the importance of defense in depth. We look at the control categories of administrative, technical, and physical controls. We look at control functions, including deterrent, preventative, detective, corrective, recovery, and compensating. We look at guidance for selecting controls, and we look at the importance of auditing controls. In 1.17, we turn our attention to the supply chain. We identify supply chain participants, supply chain risk management, and supply chain assurance, including looking at SSAE 16 audit reports. Our last topic in this category is business continuity, which is business continuity with a focus on availability. So we're looking at business continuity objectives, business continuity planning, and a business impact analysis. So these 18 lessons make up the first domain, the security and risk management domain, again going into 4 categories. As you're going through your study plan, ensure that you are comfortable in each one of these areas and confident and ready for your exam. And if you're not, go back in and focus on that area. In our next lesson, we're going to look at the second domain, which is asset security.